Alright, let's talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 Royal Edition. I remember when KCD2 came out, I was over the top. I played the first one a couple of times, obviously Royal Edition, and to me that game was very good. It pushed all my buttons in the proper way. Granted, it wasn't the best game ever, but it certainly was great. You could see the effort that was put in the game, particularly in terms of being as realistic as possible with game mechanics. I'm specifically talking about swordplay or medieval combat in general, as well as giving you that medieval feeling. So naturally, jumping immediately into KCD2 was a no-brainer. Mind you, the devs said that you don't really need to play the first game to understand stuff, but I played KCD a long time ago, and there were some things I didn't quite remember, and it felt a bit odd. So what I did, basically being obsessive as I am, I finished playing KCD2 and immediately started playing KCD. And then I played KCD2 again. And it made so much sense to me. Essentially, I spent countless hours in what I call the peasant simulator, and I reckon this is enough of an indicator how much I like this franchise. Based on the roadmap that devs gave us, I knew there would be 3 DLCs coming after the launch, but I've decided I will not play them as they come out. Rather, I would wait for KCD2 Royal Edition and then play the game like that. To me, that is the definitive version of the game because it represents the full vision that the devs had when they were deciding to make the game, and if you ask me, this is how this game is meant to be played. Obviously, I won't go into huge detail about the game mechanics, nor I intend to do that. My main goal is to check out the game as a whole with its DLC content, as well as to figure out differences between the launch version and the Royal Edition. Then I will mention issues that I have with the mechanics and suggestions how to improve stuff in order to make this game even better. I could have just loaded my old save files, but here's the thing. I don't know how that would interact with all the patches that happened in the meantime. Also, I kinda forgot how to play the game, and I never liked jumping in the old save files where I have no clue what the hell is happening. I would feel like a fish out of water. It just doesn't work for me. I either have to play the game continuously until I finish it, or I have to start everything from scratch. Also, let's be real, playing KCD2 again is never a bad thing. For starters, the main change you can immediately see when you start a new game is obviously the hardcore mode. It seems like a good thing, especially with all the flaws you can pick. However, given the limitations it imposes on you, I reckon the best thing to do is to play the game on normal first and then jump into hardcore mode later. That's what I'm doing right now. I finished the game on normal, took me around 115 hours or so, and now I'm playing it on hardcore. You need to pick minimum 3 flaws, but if you want to pick more, nobody's stopping you. There is an achievement that requires of you to pick all of them, but I have never been a fan of these achievements anyway, so to each his own. It definitely elevates the game to the next level, and it keeps you on your toes, particularly when it comes to combat and map awareness, as in knowing where the hell you are in any given moment. Since the launch, KCD2 has transformed noticeably. The developers didn't just patch bugs as you expect they would. They reshaped the core systems and added real polish. The addition of features like the barber, where you can customize your appearance, and official mod support helped the game feel more personal and replayable. Combat and crafting got meaningful upgrades and improvements. The blacksmithing, for example, was rebalanced and refined, weapons and armor stats were tweaked, polearms strengthened, shields made more accessible, making gear progression and combat choices matter. The economy, item weight, and durability, loot, and inventory management were reworked so trading, stealth, and survival feels more balanced and realistic. Over time, the world gained more life, so to speak. Activities like horse racing and mounted archery were added, crafting and forging became deeper, NPCs became more believable, and their daily routine was improved, which then led to better immersion. No matter how you look at it, KCD2 just got better, more stable, and more immersive. The Peasant Simulator feels great, and my time with it was extraordinary. Then there are the DLCs. There's 3 of them: Brushes of Death, Legacy of the Forge, and Mysteria Ecclesiae. Now, my initial reaction to DLC content was something along the lines of, okay, we are talking about a chain quest or something like that, but Legacy of the Forge had me wondering if we are getting something similar to Pribyslavitz. Initially, I thought the village of Messales would be a place where Henry can establish his base by rebuilding it, but I was wrong. But let's talk about DLC content in more detail. The first DLC to be released is the Brushes of Death. This DLC centers around a new quest chain. You stumble upon this mysterious artist person, Master Wojta, and gradually uncover the secrets behind his past. It's a mix of intrigue, investigation, and morally ambiguous decisions. As a part of his story, you get shield painting and customization. You can decorate your shields with unique designs, adding flair of personalization. As far as I'm concerned, I don't use shields, so for me this is a non-existent feature, but for those who are rocking the weapon and shield style, I reckon it's a cool thing. It adds many new quests, I think around 10 plus or something like that, and they're all linked together to form the DLC narrative. There is also a new equipment, which means more gear variety you can find or earn. I didn't use any of it since I already have my own drip, but again, it was cool to see them in action. In short, it's a story and roleplay driven DLC, adding narrative depth and cosmetic and gear variety, good for players who like exploration, plot twists, and customizing Henry. Also, the DLC spans throughout both maps, because I initially thought that it was done when I finished everything in Trotsky, and I felt like it was a huge letdown, but then when I saw the icon in Kuttenberg, it felt great because that meant I get to do more stuff. Next one is Legacy of the Forge. This DLC moves the game towards crafting, management, simulation kind of a direction. You get to rebuild your father's old forge in Kuttenberg. You are given an opportunity to restore a once renowned smithy and gradually transform it into your base of operations. Like I said before, I kinda hoped for a whole village, but this isn't bad either. You effectively become a master blacksmith. You'll accept commissions, craft bespoke weapons, and climb a new prestige system, which tracks how respected your forge becomes. The DLC features deep customization of your property. You're not just crafting stuff, you are building and decorating your workshop and living quarters. The forge becomes your home, workshop, and a symbol of your legacy, with many customization options for aesthetics and function. I always wanted to base in Kuttenberg, and finally this became a reality, so there is that as well. With this system, new gameplay loops were added. Daily commissions, managing the workshop, forging rare items, fulfilling orders for NPCs, all that good stuff. These are basically daily quests. Over time, it opens up unique, powerful weapons and armor blueprints, and late game rewards. This to me was something that just made me interact with the game even more. I pretty much ignored everything and was continuously forging and completing daily quests in order to increase prestige, so I can build even more stuff on the property. In effect, this DLC transforms part of KCD2 into a medieval era craft and build simulator, which for me is a great thing since I love smithing, crafting, and long-term progression and building improvements. The main quest associated to this DLC is also interesting, and as a side bonus, you get to learn more about Martin and his experiences when he was a young smith's apprentice. Also, let's not forget the legendary Wolf and his performance. That stuff was top tier and I can't wait to interact with the man again. Final DLC is called Mysteria Ecclesiae. It lets you enter the previously inaccessible Sedlets Monastery. We knew something was gonna happen there because the location already existed on the map, but was locked in the base game. Now you explore it fully, unlocking new narrative content. The core of the DLC is a mystery-driven storyline. Our boy Henry must navigate church politics, hidden truths, and dangerous, clandestine conflict deep within the monastery. It gives you intrigue, secrets, and moral, fate-based dilemmas. As a part of the DLC, you gain access to new items, equipment, and possibly potions, books, or clues that help you throughout the monastery's tests. It adds loot and utilities tailored to the DLC's atmosphere. However, the DLC imposes some constraints. Once you enter the monastery, you cannot bring in your own weapons or armor. Also, your storage is inaccessible until you finish the storyline. And obviously, you cannot leave until you are done with the storyline as well. This presumably is meant to enhance immersion and tension inside the monastery, and that's why I'm suggesting to arm yourself with fuck ton of savior snaps. Trust me, you will need it. The DLC is more of a standalone, self-contained adventure than a systematic overhaul. It doesn't radically change the core systems like crafting or economy, but aims to deliver a dark, atmospheric, story-heavy experience. Think what we had with From the Ashes DLC in KCD 1, but more interesting in my opinion since we are not playing as some other character. Now, if I have played these DLC when they were released, I would have probably be okay with the content, for example with Brushes of Death and Mysteria Ecclesiae, whereas with the Legacy of the Forge I would be over the top. However, since I am playing this from scratch, so to speak, when all of them were released, to me this just means I'm getting more KCD2 and my time spent in the game is increased by default, and this was my main goal from the beginning, to be honest. So one thing to understand in this whole situation is that these are DLCs, they're not expansions. This is not the level of expansion that we have seen in, for example, Witcher 3 with Blood and Wine or Heart of Stone. And in that sense, it's unrealistic to expect huge changes. That being said, the Legacy of the Forge can't be considered as a mini expansion because it adds a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't consider it a full-blown expansion, so to speak. I would say it's just a good utilization of the systems that we already have, plus some changes in terms of property management and property improvement. Now, do I have any bad remarks about DLCs? Well, not really. I just wanted 6 of them instead of 3. But in terms of storyline, I think they were okay. Brushes of Death gave us a unique perspective how to cope with trauma and past mistakes, while Mysteria Ecclesiae gave us murder mystery, which again, I think is okay. And as far as Legacy of the Forge goes, like I said, it gave us more Martin lore, so to speak. So overall, I really enjoyed these DLCs. Well, except maybe for the damn crayfish hunt in the monastery, where it took me some time to figure out that the bloody crustaceans are actually hiding in the grass above the water, but yeah, other than that, it was a good experience. As it is the case with every game ever made, there are issues that exist, and I don't think there is a game in that sense that is issue-free, so to speak. Some of them are major, some of them are minor, some are just your usual hair-splitting. In terms of KCD2, I couldn't find anything that was major or game-breaking. Most of the stuff that I found to annoy me could be classified as a minor issue. The main idea here is to point out the issues that I have encountered, so if they get fixed, they could elevate game to even further greatness, particularly through mods, but especially if KCD 3 happens in the distant future. And when KCD launches, I would like to see these improvements right at the launch, so to speak. Obviously, like I said, there are mods, but again, I'm not taking them into account. I'm just analyzing the as-is status of the game. So, let's go over them. When the game came out, I viewed dice as an activity that I should only interact with when the quest requires it to do so, until I assemble my Saint Antiochus dice combo. Yes, the quests which had dice component were much more comfortable to do in this manner, but that was basically that. With the Royal Edition, dice minigame has changed, and I have mixed feelings about it. First, the Saint Antiochus dice combo is gone. Apparently, always rolling 3s was a big bug. So what are my options now? Well, I went with the odd die combo in the beginning. I managed to get 6 of them through various means, and for the most part it was okay. Still, I had a feeling the dice game got more longer and a bit tedious. I mean, back in the day, I could finish a game with 2 maximum 3 throws, and that enabled me to move on fast and get what I want. Now, depending on the rolls, the game can last up to 5 minutes or sometimes even longer. Maybe I got spoiled by this unintentional Antiochus bug. I can accept that, but the problem is, it was fun and I didn't get it super fast. I worked my ass off to get those dice, same as I worked hard to pimp Henry up, so he's basically a god. I mean, that's the whole idea of this game. I wouldn't want this OP feeling in the beginning of the game, but later on, I don't see why this couldn't be a thing. Second, you can get much more money from dice players because bets have been increased. This is certainly a good thing, but aforementioned problem with going faster through dice minigame kinda diminishes this particular improvement. Now, I mentioned I already had 6 odd dice. They are not that hard to get, but what if I wanted to get another dice combo, one that's even more potent? Well, the first thing that came to my mind was to make weighted die combo, but during my 115 hours of gameplay, I found only one, which is the one that you get in the beginning of the game by either not looting it from that chest or putting it back with all your money in the chest that you took it from in the first place. So that was a big letdown. So the next best thing what I could do was I managed to assemble somewhat powerful combo formed from 4 variable dice and 2 pi dice. And that was basically it. I should point out I was going for dice that have a favorable roll towards 1. That was the main strategy. But even if I went with something like 3 die or painted die combo, in my mind it's a suboptimal solution. What this tells me is that acquiring dice is somewhat difficult. It would be nice if the innkeepers had a better dice variety or if I could find more of them in the wild. Usually when I kill a bunch of bandits, I mostly get those shitty dice like unbalanced die or unlucky die or whatever. I think I have somewhere around 10 of those Wagoner's dice, and it's really annoying. Third, there is a problem with die visibility. It is challenging to see the numbers on the dice itself. Usually, what I have to do is I have to cycle through them so the UI indicator tells me what I rolled. This is particularly problematic in taverns during nighttime, but can also happen outdoors if the light is hitting the dice table in a specific or in a particular way. I somewhat remember having the same issue before, particularly with dice that have a polished finish, like the Saint Antiochus die, but ultimately that didn't matter simply because I always knew that they will roll 3 no matter what, so I didn't pay attention to it. Now, thanks to the legacy of Forge, dice interactions have intensified more, which is a good thing, but it makes me wonder if devs should have given us a bit more options in order to acquire more dice. So, like I said, it's a mixed bag. You get to interact with the minigame more, but it is giving me tedious vibes. I don't mind that being a thing in Trotsky region, for example, but later on, I just want to destroy people with my dice setup, and that's not the case, so yeah, maybe in KCD 3, we might even have an NPC who would make dice for us. Sure, they could cost a lot, but it's an investment, like everything in this game anyway. Or just increase the chance of us finding more of those dice in the wild. As long as I can get to a situation that playing dice makes me comfortable, it's a win in my book. Alchemy alongside smithing is something I really enjoy. Problem is, compared to smithing, it can drag on, especially if you're playing, let's say, hardcore mode, where potions are pretty important, particularly if you grab a perk like Punchable Face, for example. That's why I don't really understand why there isn't an auto brew option like we had in KCD 1 with the routine perk. You could argue in KCD 1 there weren't potion tiers or potion potency levels, but in my mind that still couldn't justify the lack of this perk. In fact, I find it hard to find a reason why this perk doesn't exist in KCD 2 at all. Not to mention, I never like seeing features removed that are actually good. Anyway, I don't suggest getting this perk at level 10, but it would be very much appreciated if we get it somewhere around, I don't know, level 25 plus. That way I'm doing my alchemy stuff faster, and instead of brewing potions for 12 in-game hours, I can actually do it in a fluid way to continue with my usual peasanting. Also, to make it a bit more interesting, I would reduce the number of potions you get with auto brew option. If I can get, let's say, 6 potions with all my perks right now, with auto brew, I should get maximum half. That would definitely stimulate me going around picking and using fresh herbs, instead of just drawing everything and then only using alchemy during the hours defined by the dark arts apprentice perk, because that's, in my opinion, the most optimal way to brew potions right now. Another issue when brewing potions is the placement of the recipe book. I feel it would be better if the book was placed in a more central place in the whole alchemy table setup. I mean, here I am, either squinting at the book in the lower left corner or putting my face as close as I can to the monitor, figuring out how do I brew something, because I don't want to interrupt the fluidity of potion making by continuously entering the look at the book animation and then go back to the alchemy table animation. I'm pretty much going back and forth between the table and the book, basically flipping myself to 2 animations. And then I just give up on that whole thing, where I just whip out my phone and look at the recipe like that, without breaking the momentum, so to speak, while brewing things. But at the same time, I'm killing my immersion, so I don't really know who wins here. If we ever get KCD 3, please, for the love of God, put the damn book somewhere so I can see it while I'm brewing potions without going through animations of back and forth between the book and the alchemy table. I don't mind going through the book to find the set potion that I want to brew, but I want to be able to see it properly as I'm making the potion. Or better yet, give us the ability to zoom in at the book with the right mouse button in the same fashion we're aiming when using the bow. That way the book can stay where it is, I just zoom in a little bit without any animation BS, and we are golden. I reckon that zoom in, zoom out is much more elegant solution in the grand scheme of things than moving the whole book somewhere else. I don't know, it's just my opinion. I believe these 2 modifications can really be beneficial for potion brewing experience and elevate it to the next level. While horseback riding and shooting was a very normal thing to see back in the medieval times, it didn't really pan out to be an amazing thing in KCD 2. See, there's this new quest that was added that involves our boy Henry as a mediator between these 2 guys. One claims horseback riding and shooting is the best thing ever, while the other one says it's just the horseback riding that's the only way to go. It was an interesting idea, far from it, and I'm not really complaining that new quests are being added to the game, but by God, horseback riding and shooting at the same time felt like a pain. You have to conquer 3 courses, and let me tell you, I really disliked it. The last trial was particularly painful, and I only managed to do it by actually stopping in front of the target and shooting it point blank range. That way I got those 16 points, but I only completed half of the trial. I mean, it's still a win, but it felt like shit. However, that felt like a huge relief, because I knew I'm not going to touch that thing ever again, no matter the reward. Hell, I don't even know if I might get some special rewards if I keep doing the shooting course or whatever. Also, crossbow was much better option than the longbow, let me tell you that. However, I have to be honest, my experience could have been better if not for my relatively low marksmanship skill level. So next time I reckon I will engage with it only when I reach level 18 in the marksmanship with the Eagle Eye perk. Still, no matter what I do for the next playthrough, it still feels shitty, and that's about it. I like Musa Mali as a character. I really do. I think he is a very cool character. The issue is, and this is something I always had the problem with, he just doesn't belong in this world as far as I'm concerned. I don't really mind that he's a black guy who ended up in Bohemia all the way from Mali, and that he's explaining how his culture is better and Bohemians should adopt elements of it and all that good stuff. I mean, sure, everyone can be biased towards their culture. This is how people are, and that's all fine and dandy. If he was some Turkish scholar, it would probably make more sense. However, what absolutely makes no sense to me is what happens during his involvement in the Italian court storyline, and it felt so forced to me. Having a foreign Muslim participate in a council meant to settle a dispute with the Catholic Church doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What's even worse, it's him suggesting the best course of action how to resolve a dispute. Seeing him there felt like a minor shock to me. I doubt the church at that time, or even today, would ever allow something like that to happen, regardless if it was Sigismund himself sending him to that meeting. Which again, I extremely doubt given the fact Sigismund was fighting Turks at Nicopolis. I don't know what devs wanted to achieve or what kind of message they wanted to relay. I can only speculate, and that's a whole another video in itself, but in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't fly. I can feel it in my gut, and it makes no sense whatsoever, and I'm sure I'm not the only one with this particular issue. I would say nice try, but no cigar at the end of the day. It's very cool to have a complex crime system in the game, and I love it. Problem is, sometimes it doesn't work like it should, and I'll give an example. So, I'm in Gutenberg, stealing left, right and center like I usually do. Nobody sees me because I'm literally sneaking in the pitch black darkness. I'm making sure all the doors that I unlocked are closed, I'm making sure nobody sees me, and I also ensure I'm nowhere near the shop I'm robbing during the day. So pretty much, I travel from completely different direction to commit my robbery. And yet somehow, the guards know I robbed the store or did something along the lines. What's even more strange, sometimes they see me entering the place or even see me skulking around and I don't get any bounty whatsoever. So there is definitely some irregularity there. As if the guards can mysteriously scan my ass through the walls, or people sleeping in the house that I'm robbing are having outer body experiences and can see me sticking my fingers everywhere. This is even worse if it happens in hardcore mode, because it can produce a very complicated side effect. Hell, even in normal mode when they catch you stealing a lot of stuff, it takes several in-game days just for them to forget that there is a bounty on your ass. I reckon some extra tweaking can fix this stuff. Also, it has to be said, my Henry is not a huge lawbreaker, he's just borrowing stuff for a long-term period of time, and that's about the only thing I can be caught doing. Still, feels weird like a lottery. You win some, but sometimes you really lose. And a lot. And let me tell you, it's definitely not a pleasant experience to be had. Truth to be told, I never really liked them. Not just in KCD2, but in every game I have played. I can respect the urgency behind the whole thing, since it adds an interesting element to the quest and the story, but still, sometimes you get sidetracked and you are not really taking things into consideration. It would be nice if there was an indicator that the quest is actually time sensitive, especially when you open the quest log. That could help a lot in terms of planning your gameplay, particularly if you're playing hardcore mode, considering fast travel is disabled in that game mode. Actually, at the time of me recording this, I found a mod that does just that. So, since I'm playing on hardcore now, I will install it and then see what happens. I'll put the link of the mod in the description and then I'll check it out whether or not it's still working or it needs to be updated. But whatever may be the case, if it is working, all good. If it's not, oh well, it was a good try. It still feels like merchants are not that wealthy and the amount of money they have on them is relatively low compared to the prices of the gear you can buy. For example, one armor in Gutenberg is selling a cuirass for 11k Russian, while his maximum money supply is at best 2 or 3k Russian. And by the time I can actually clean him fully through normal means, it would take 4 or 5 in-game days, depending on his inventory refreshes. That's why I'm mostly focusing on stealing. However, with the addition of the Legacy of the Forge, this can somewhat be compensated by the sales from the sale chest or by doing commissions. I know I'm not helping the economy by robbing the merchants blind, but maybe in the future for KCD3 that could be solved by hiding the money in an invisible chest, or a chest can be placed under the shops themselves so the players cannot physically reach them. That way merchants would still have money, and also every day they would get a sum based on the amount of money they have. So for example, let's say the increase upon daily refreshes would follow some kind of a logarithmical curve, for example logarithm with the base of 2, which would ensure an upward sloping curve that decreases at a decreasing rate. You would still be able to steal their items, particularly if they are visibly displayed in the shop, but the money aspect would be somewhat intact, so you could sell your stuff from time to time and have decent interactions with the merchants. I was thinking maybe making a mod or using a mod that flat out increases the amount of money they have, but that is a temporary fix, or rather a short-term fix, and it's not an optimal solution to the problem. It cannot be overstated how much I like Legacy of the Forge DLC. However, this aspect of the DLC by far is the worst. Getting these armor sketches is a pain in the ass. I managed to get 3 out of 5, which means I managed to acquire 2 cuirasses and plate sleeves, and that's about it. So I got a double one, which is even worse. The rest of them I never saw. Now, whether or not this is some kind of a bug or RNG issue, I cannot say for certain, but it's a problem. I always hated the fact I cannot get these DLC related items in a relatively reasonable amount of time in order for them to make an impact. This always reminds me of the Witcher 3 Heart of Stone situation. There you could get the venomous Viper Silver Sword only at the end of the game, and what's even worse, you could have missed it altogether, which sucks. And that really pissed me off. Whole freaking DLC, and I can't use the best silver sword that exists in the game up until that point. But here it's even worse. I flat out had to abandon the whole concept altogether because I just couldn't be bothered by doing the investigation quest for the 40th time already. At this point, for my hardcore playthrough, I will just add these sketches through a console command, since it's ridiculous how long it actually might take for the RNGesus to bless me with the prospect of acquiring them. It just fucking sucks. I'm afraid these still suck in my mind. I haven't used a single one except for that s'more tutorial at Nebakov, where Godwin always kicks my ass. They are hard to aim and too long to reload. At this point, I will always prefer a longbow with poisoned arrows over the handgun thing, or handgun, however you want to pronounce it, because they are pronouncing it in all kinds of ways in the game. Anyway, bow is also superior because of its stealth aspect. I suspect that big ass blast can be heard from miles away, so that's also something that I can see as a negative thing. I haven't tried it, but I reckon it works like that. They are very situational, and by that I mean I would use them in tight corridors, but then I remember I have a sword and a shield, so yeah, I simply cannot find a reason to use them other than messing around just because I can. I'm afraid at this point I see these weapons more as a gimmick rather than something that has a measurable utility. That also means I can't really give a lot of suggestion how to improve them. I guess the next best thing would be to find an archery range where they use handguns only, but I have yet to find that type of location. So if it doesn't exist, well, put it somewhere near Gutenberg and let us practice so we can get better with the weapon. Other than that, I don't really have anything smart to say. Fortunately, These weapons aren't that impactful, so that's their saving grace, I guess, since there are other alternatives that do a really good job in terms of a long-range combat situation. Yeah, this thing is still an ongoing issue. It was a problem before and it's still a problem now. Any type of dried meat is pretty much a small sack. So when you throw it on the ground that has even a 1-degree slope, it will tumble down the slope and the poor boy cannot grab it to eat it. He's just looking at it rolling away and it kinda pisses me off, to be honest. Yeah, sometimes he managed to grab it, but still, it's not really good. That's why I'm mostly smoking the food for the boy, but dried food is better in terms of staying fresh longer, so yeah. Obviously it can be solved by changing the physical model of the food itself, by actually not being a sack, but rather something different, but oh well. Maybe increasing the weight of the said model so it's not affected by the game physics. I mean, just let me feed a damn dog, okay? It's not much that I ask. I just wanna make him happy and I wanna feed him well, and that's about it. Just don't. Let me get those items in game instead of doing this Twitch and linking account bullshit and all that stuff. I simply loathe these things and frankly it makes me sick in the mouth a bit. Do not do this in the future. You tried and you failed. Jesus Christ be praised. I remember when I said to myself that I need to be patient for all the DLC content to come out to replay KCD2 again. It was extremely hard to stay disciplined because I was itching to play the game so much because it is that good. Then KCD2 Royal Edition finally came out and my patience was rewarded in the most satisfying way possible. I can without a doubt say Royal Edition is an amazing experience and it is a must-have for anyone who considers themselves a true RPG fan. This is a game I really cannot stop thinking about and I simply cannot recommend it enough to anyone I know. Hell, I'm even considering ambushing random strangers on the street and be like, go play this game now or suffer dire consequences. Obviously, like I pointed out previously, there are some things I would like to see changed, but it is only because I want the experience to be even better than it already is. On top of that, when KCD 3 happens, and by the way I say when because it will happen, trust me, it would be nice to see these improvements from day one with the new features that might be included in the game itself. Also, there are things that I would like to see in KCD 3, but that's a video for some other time. Anyway, stop wasting your time with other nonsense in your life, get KCD 2 Royal Edition and immerse yourself in the Peasant Simulator 2.0. Jesus Christ be praised. And that's it from me, until the next one.